Hello and welcome to Daily Current Affairs by Ekam IAS. Today is 16th August 2019 and the topics for discussion are Global Assessment of Forest Biodiversity by the Worldwide Fund for Nature, then is nematodes, insulin, tuberculosis, map aided program and previous year question revision series. Now coming to our first topic, which is Global Assessment of Forest Biodiversity by Worldwide Fund for Nature, that is WWF. Now this is in news because more than half of the forest wildlife has declined since the 1970, and this is according to the first ever global assessment of forest biodiversity by the Worldwide Fund for Nature. Now the new findings were based on the Forest Specialist Index. Okay, now there has been a 53% decline in the number of forest wildlife populations since the 1970. Now, of the 455 monitored populations of forest specialists, more than half has declined at an annual rate of 1.7%. And this decline has happened between the years of 1970 and 2014. Now, while the decline was consistent in these years among mammals, reptiles and amphibians, and these three species within the tropical range, it was less among birds and that too present in the temperate forest. And these findings we've got it from this report. Now we'll be talking about the major threats for the decline in wildlife population. There are basically three major threats. The first one is habitat loss and habitat degradation. Then comes exploitation and finally climate change. Now the thing is, loss of habitat due to logging, agricultural expansion, mining and conflicts are, including in that is spread of diseases accounted for more than 60% of the threats. So that's a very big margin there. 60% is a very huge number. Then after that we'll come to exploitation. Now nearly 20% of threats were due to overexploitation. Okay. Now of the 112 forest dwelling primate populations, 40 were threatened due to overexploitation. Now we come to climate change. Now climate change has threatened 43% of amphibian, 37% of reptile populations, 21% of bird population, but only 3% of mammal population. So climate change is directly affecting only 3% of mammal population, but that being said, it is affecting other reptiles, birds and such species like that. Now more than 60% of the threatened forest specialist populations faced more than one threat. It means over 60% has not just faced one of these threats, it's a multiple layer of threats, 60% has faced more than one. It's not just like one area is only facing one kind of threat. There are multiple layers of threat for each forest specialist region. Now we'll talk about the Worldwide Fund for Nature. Now it is an international non-governmental organization working in the field of wilderness preservation and reduction of human impact on the environment. It was founded in 1961 and headquartered in Gland, Switzerland. The Worldwide Fund aims to stop degradation of the planet's natural environment and build a future in which humans live in harmony with nature. Now currently its work is organized around 6 areas. Now those are food, climate, freshwater, wildlife, forest and finally ocean. So these are the 6 areas. Now WWF publishes the Living Planet report every 2 years since 1998. So keep in mind, this is a biannual report. Once every 2 years this Living Planet report is published, and it is published by WWF. Now we'll come to the next topics, which is nematodes. Now a global analysis on nematodes have been conducted by a team of researchers. Okay, this is why this is in news. Now basically we'll talk about what these things are. Nematodes are round worms, basically round worms, and their sizes can vary from a tiny 0.2 millimeters to a few meters. So the size variation is very large in these nematodes. Okay, a team of over 50 researchers collected over 6,500 soil samples from all 7 continents of the world and found that there are about 57 billion nematodes for every human being on earth. So that's a huge population. You already know there are around 8 billion people living in the world right now. So there are 57 billion for every human being in the earth, which means a very large amount. Now the study was done on the top 15 centimeter of the soil, and the total biomass comes around 300 million tons, which is about 80% of the combined weight of the earth's humans. So that is a lot of nematodes that we have to consider. Now we'll talk about the findings from these researchers. Now the nematodes are responsible for around 2.2% of the total carbon emission from the soil. At 38% of the total, subarctic regions have the highest abundance of nematodes. Okay, now the temperate regions has the next highest abundance, followed by the tropical regions. So when you see the ranking, the Arctic or the subarctic region will have the highest amount of nematodes, followed by the temperate, and then finally coming to the tropical region. The soil organic matter content was the key driver for nematode abundance. The low temperature and high moisture in the subarctic region reduce the decomposition rate of organic matter. Now this leads to accumulation of organic matter, and the nematodes happily thrive on them, because since the temperature is very low there, organic matter is not readily decomposed very quickly. Now the nematodes will have these organic matter as food for them, and they will thrive. So therefore we have more number of nematodes in the subarctic or arctic region. And that is the reason why also we have very little in the tropical region, because tropical region is very hot and all the organic matter that we get are readily decomposed very quickly. Now these nematodes play a crucial role in the environment, as they are responsible for production of about 19% of ammonia in the soil. Now they are also important bioindicators of soil ecosystem health. Now improving our understanding of these organisms at a global level is critical if we need to understand and address climate change. So, as I just told you, nematodes are also bioindicators of the soil, so which will tell us how healthy a soil is, depending on the population of the nematodes. And since they are also responsible for secretion of ammonia, they also play a role in the climate change that is happening. So understanding them is crucial. Now we'll come to the next topic, which is insulin. Now this is a news because the British Nobel Prize winning scientist, that is Dorothy Hodgkin, announced a discovery of the crystalline structure of insulin. Okay, now insulin is a life-saving drug that is used by diabetic people. Now we'll talk about this news. The British Nobel Prize winning scientist, that is Dorothy Hodgkin, announced the discovery of this crystalline structure of insulin. The discovery could lead to an understanding and elimination of the side effects of insulin. Okay, now it could make possible the development of insulin by a synthetic process instead of the presently costly production of the drug from natural elements. Currently, for commercial purposes, insulin is created from a method called recombinant DNA technology, wherein a human insulin producing gene is added into an E. coli bacteria, and after the E. coli bacteria's gene has been changed, the E. coli bacteria starts to produce insulin. So this apparently is a little costly, and therefore this new method, the new discovery that has been found out by this British Nobel Prize winner, can reduce the cost for production of insulin at a commercial level. Now we'll talk about insulin. Basically, two Canadian scientists, that is Dr. Frederick Banting and Dr. Charles H. Best, isolated insulin in 1921. Now insulin is used by humans for the treatment of diabetes, as it has been used since 1982. Insulin is a hormone that regulates blood sugar. Now insulin is generated by our pancreas also. Okay. Now as I told you before, human insulin is produced in a laboratory by injecting proteins of insulin in E. coli bacteria. Now we'll talk about types of human insulin. Okay. Human insulin is available in two forms. Okay, that is, the first is a short acting form that we call the regular form, and the second one is the intermediate acting form, which is also called the NPH form. Now the NPH stands for neural protamine hegedron insulin. So NPH is neural protamine hegedron insulin, and it is also called isophane insulin. Now it is a suspension, meaning that the insulin vial should be rolled or repeatedly turned upside down to ensure the solution is uniformly cloudy. Now we have premixed insulin, which consists of a mix of regular and NPH insulin. The premixed insulin are available in a number of different ratios of mixing. Now we'll talk about a few examples of human insulin. The first one being the regular or the short acting insulin. Examples for that is the Humulin S, Actrapid, and Insulin Rapid. These are three examples of short acting insulin. NPH insulin, those are Humulin I, Insulin Basal, and Insulatard. And finally, the premixed human insulin are Humulin M2, M3, and M5, Insulin Comb 15, 25, and 50. So these are the examples of the human insulin that we get in the market today. Now we'll talk about diabetes. Now diabetes is a chronic, progressive, non-communicable disease characterized by elevated levels of sugar or blood glucose. Okay, it occurs when the pancreas does not produce enough insulin hormone which regulates the blood sugar. The body cannot effectively use this insulin that it produces. This is another reason why diabetes is occurring. So first reason is the pancreas does not produce enough insulin, and the second reason is the body is not able to use the insulin which the pancreas has produced. Now diabetes is a major cause for blindness, kidney failure, heart attacks, stroke, and limb amputation. There's another thing called hyperglycemia, and it is called raised blood sugar, and it's a common effect of uncontrolled diabetes, and over the time leads to serious damage in many of the human system, especially the nerves and blood vessels. Now we'll talk about the type of diabetes. Okay, now there is something called a type 1 diabetes. Now type 1 diabetes occurs when the body does not make enough insulin, and type 2 diabetes occurs when the body does not make use of the insulin very well. Both of them causing glucose to remain in the blood, which can lead to a serious problem. The main symptom of diabetes is excess fatigue, frequent urination, dysentery, excessive thirst, etc. Diabetes can also be genetic, but its main cause is obesity, lack of adequate nutrition, etc. Now, people with type 1 diabetes require insulin. People with type 2 diabetes can be treated with oral medication, but may also require insulin, blood pressure control, and foot care. So these are the ways in which type 1 and type 2 diabetes can be treated. Now we'll talk about something called gestational diabetes. Gestational diabetes is hyperglycemia with blood glucose values above normal but below those of diagnostic of the diabetes. Now this occurs during pregnancy. Okay. Now women with gestational diabetes are at an increased risk of complication during pregnancy and at delivery. They and their children are also at an increased risk of type 2 diabetes in the future. Gestational diabetes is diagnosed through prenatal screening rather than through reported symptoms. So this is here, that is why they say, you have to go, the pregnant women has to go and check up themselves constantly after every month, is because of this fact only. One reason is this, because if she gets or somehow she acquires gestational diabetes, it is harmful for the mother and also the child. So this should be avoided, and that is why prenatal checkups are very, very, very crucial. Now coming to the next topic, which is tuberculosis. Now a pilot is to be conducted in selected wards to make Mumbai a TB-free city by 2025. That is the main aim here. Now we'll talk about tuberculosis. Tuberculosis or TB is caused by a bacteria called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And it most often affects the lungs. But it is not only restricted to the lungs, it can spread to other parts of the body as well. But most probably it is affecting the lungs. Tuberculosis is curable and is preventable. Now, TB is spread from person to person through air. When people with lung TB, when they have TB in their lungs, when they cough, sneeze or spit, they propel this TB germs into the air. And the person needs only to inhale a few of these germs to be infected by TB. Now, tobacco users greatly increase the risk of TB disease and death. In fact, 7.9% of TB cases worldwide are attributed to smoking. Now, we'll talk about the diagnostic test. Now, the use of the rapid test, that is expert MTB-RIF, has been expanded substantially since 2010. And it is since 2010 that the WHO had first recommended the use of this diagnostic test. The test simultaneously detects TB and the resistance to rifampicin, the most important TB medicine as of now. Now we'll be talking about the drug-resistant TB. Now, the drug-resistant TB emerges when anti-TB medicines are used inappropriately. Okay. Now, inappropriately, it means here that through incorrect prescription by healthcare providers, poor quality drugs, and patients stopping medicines or treatment prematurely. Before that the course is completely over, if the people stop taking medicines, then also the TB inside the body will get resistant to the drugs and will become, resistant TB bacteria. Now, multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, that is MDR-TB, is a form of TB caused by bacteria that does not respond to isoniazid and rifampicin. Now, these two are the second most powerful first-line anti-TB drugs. Now, MDR-TB is treatable and curable using these second-line drugs, but in some cases, more severe drugs resistance can be developed by these bacteria. At that point of time, it is called extensively drug-resistant TB, that is XDR-TB. Now, this is a more serious form of MDR-TB, okay, and is caused by bacteria that do not respond to the most effective second-line anti-TB drugs, and this often leaves the patient without any further treatment options. Now, we'll talk about the WHO End TB strategy. Now, adopted by the World Health Assembly in May of 2014 to end TB epidemic by driving down TB deaths, incidents and eliminating catastrophic costs. It outlines global impact targets to reduce TB deaths by 90%, to cut new cases by 80% between 2015 and 2030, and to ensure that no family is burdened with catastrophic cost due to TB. Ending the TB epidemic by 2030 is among the health targets of the newly adopted Sustainable Development Goal, and various media campaigns have been planned to educate the masses about TB and its prevention. Now, Swasthya-e-Gurukul is one such initiative of the World Health Organization. Now, we'll talk about India and the National Strategic Plan for TB Elimination. Now, the National Strategic Plan, that is NSP, was launched by the government to control the cases of tuberculosis in a country during the period of 2012 to 2017. The implementation of the NSP for TB elimination was started in January of 2017. The plan aims to achieve 100% case detection by 2020 and complete elimination of the disease by 2025. There are 4 strategic pillars, and those are detect, treat, prevent and build, and this has been developed for achieving the goals for the National Strategic Plan. Anti-TB drugs, that is the bedaquiline, has been introduced under the Conditional Access Program. Now, bedaquiline is the latest anti-TB drug. It is supposed to be effective even against MDR-TB bacteria, or in some cases even against the XDR-TB bacteria. The plan envisions a corpus fund for the TB maintained under a fund which is called the Bharat Share Niyantran Paritsan, that is the India TB Control Foundation. Now, the e-Niksha is an online platform that has been made user friendly so as to let the doctors notify the cases as and when they come across the infected patients. Now, we'll come to the map aided program. Today, we'll be starting with the mountain passes in Maharashtra. So, today we'll be talking about a few mountain passes in Maharashtra, and as you can see here there is Amba Ghat, Ambenali Ghat, Amboli Ghat, Bhor Ghat and Chandana Puri Ghat. So, these are the 5 ghats we'll be talking about today. Now, we'll talk about them one by one. The Amba Ghat is, all these 5 ghats basically are located in the Western Ghats or in the Sahyadri mountains, as it is called in Maharashtra. Okay, now the Amba Ghat is at a height of 2000 feet above sea level. It's relatively lower, but it's a pass in the Western Ghat region, and it is located at 2000 feet above the sea level. Coming to the next one, which is the Ambenali Ghat, it connects the coastal Raigad district and the Konkan district of Maharashtra with the Satara district. Okay. Then comes Amboli Ghat. Now, this ghat receives heavy rainfall and is surrounded by thick forest, waterfalls and beautiful natural landscapes. Now, this ghat is one of the most heavily invested on tourist attractions by Maharashtra. Then coming to Bhor Ghat, which is a very important ghat. It is located between Palasdari and Khandala for the railways between Khopoli and Khandala. Okay, and it is on the road route in Maharashtra only, and it is also situated at the crest of the Western Ghats, a very high, relatively high region of this mountain range. And you might have heard about this in the when you study monsoons in India, because monsoon winds actually enter Maharashtra through this ghat also, through the Bhor Ghat. So it's an important ghat, you have to keep it in mind. Then comes Chandanapuri Ghat. The Chandanapuri Ghat is a mountain pass across the Sahyadri on the Pune-Nashik highway, that is NH50. Okay, that's all for the mountain passes for today. Now we'll be coming to the previous year question revision series. Now this is a new question and I want you all to do it yourself and write down the answer in the comment section below. I'll read out the question. A person stood alone in a desert on a dark night and wanted to reach his village, which was situated 5 kilometers east of the point where he was standing. He had no instruments to find the direction, but he located the pole star. The most convenient way now to reach his village is to walk in which direction? A. Direction facing the pole star. B. Direction opposite to the pole star. C. Direction keeping the pole star to his left. And finally D. Direction keeping the pole star to his right. It's a very easy question. You just need some imagination for this. Then I think you can do, all of you can do this. Now coming to the next question which I had given last time. The answer for this, we'll discuss this question. I had asked that consider the following crops, which is cotton, groundnut, rice and wheat. Which of the following are kharif crops? Now kharif crops are basically summer crops which are grown from the month of June to October. Basically in monsoon season, it is sown and waited, okay. So, and they are basically harvested later on during the summer season. So here, of all the three, you know it's obvious that wheat is not one of them. So you can directly eliminate wheat, and all the three, cotton, groundnut and rice, are kharif crops. So the option here is C. I hope you all got the answer for this. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this session. Please write down any doubts or queries if you have in the comment section below. Thank you.